Sherri Divband is an intuitive transformational energy healer, public speaker, and the founder of Aramis Creative Learning Center. Sherri teaches children how to explore and understand their spiritual gifts and facilitating the future and education. Sherri guides adults and children all over the world on how to reprogram limited beliefs, release trapped emotions, and strengthen their intuition. Sherri coaches her clients on how to navigate 3D interference and how to connect with the higher version of themselves. She is the author of 15 books, including Starseeds and The Great Awakening, and she's here today to talk about her latest research and work with children and animals.
You're listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla, your source for the uncensored truth regarding the human, extraterrestrial, global, and political agenda. Click the like button and subscribe to this channel. And now, here's Dr. Michael Salla.
I want to welcome you, Sherri, to the show.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Dr. Michael, for inviting me on. It's an honor to be here with you and your audience.
Well, I first saw you at the GSIC conference in 2023 in Orlando, Florida, and you did a really wonderful presentation on animals and starseeds, and I just am glad to have you on the show. So maybe we can begin with you talking a little bit about your background and how you got interested in animals and starseeds.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's like the question I get asked the most, obviously, and it's so hard to bring it down into a synopsis. I was born in Los Angeles, California, to teen parents. Lived in Torrance, California, so we were, in a poverty kind of region. Not a lot of resources. Don't have any other siblings, and I had a lot of traumas when I grew up. And because I was an only child and I had teen parents who were still in school and working and trying to survive, we had a lot of help here and there. And I was actually kidnapped after I was about 2-3 years old for 3 to 4 days. So that was very traumatic. I remember a lot of it. And then after that, I moved around a lot because my stepdad at the time was in the Air Force simulation. He was an engineer, so he would build flight simulators for the Air Force. And so we had contracts everywhere, so we would move quite frequently. And my mom had a friend that was an ex-boyfriend that would live with us often, and I was sexually abused by him for 5 years, starting at the age of 5. Moving around a lot, being an only child, I was bullied quite a lot because I was always the new kid and I was just awkward and weird and I was afraid of everybody and everything for obvious reasons. So I was a big target. My mom ended up getting a German Shepherd puppy for the family who ended up being my dog. And I think she came into my life, one, to introduce me to the animal kingdom, but to save my life because she became my best friend and really my only friend, the only one that I talked to. And she was the one that taught me about true love and what it felt like to be unconditionally loved, because from my experience throughout my childhood, adults were liars, they were mean, they hurt you, they abandon you, they abuse you, and even the children were quite mean. And I wasn't built that way. I was very sensitive, very empathic from the start. So I'd never understood any of that. So because of her, I decided to go into the animal field. So in my mind, I was going to heal the animals and thank them for being so amazing, because I realized that animals in general were just so different than people, and I could trust them, and they were so loving, and even the wildlife fascinated me. So I was going to be a vet, and I was going to heal all the animals, and that was going to be my life. So I went into that really young. In high school, I started working as a vet kennel technician, basically cleaning up the cages and walking the dogs. And very quickly I learned that I didn't want to be a vet. I wanted to be a nurse, because the nurses were the ones that actually were in the back doing the treatments on the animals and actually hanging out and spending time with the animals. And the veterinarians were in the rooms negotiating prices and estimates with the people. And I remember I didn't like people back then, and I was afraid of everybody. So I was very turned off by that. So long story short, I worked in the animal field as a nurse. So an animal nurse called a registered veterinary technician. And I was doing that for 20 years. I worked in the ICU, was my favorite, but I did general practice, surgery. I did a little bit of critical care, emergency medicine. And then I worked at the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. for 10 years. So throughout that time, I believe I dedicated my life to animals because I felt like they were the ones that deserved my attention and my time and my energy. And I went through a very dark period of time in my youth, from around the teenage years into my early 20s, where I just became very comfortable in my shadow side. And I wasn't spiritual anymore. I didn't believe in anything. And I never turned to alcohol or drugs. I wasn't that type of a person, but I just was ready to fight everybody, like physically. Like, I got my strength and my power, and the next thing you know, instead of being bullied, I was trying to fight everybody. And I started racing cars, drag racing, and I was very unstable, and I was on a very self-sabotaging trajectory. But the only stability in my life was working with animals. That was the only happy place I had. I was working with them, and I would learn animal communication while working with animals. And I ended up going into the healing sector, because I wanted to do more for animals. I wanted to help them in a better way, because in the ICU, I was working on ventilator patients. I was, placing chest tubes and central lines, and animals coming out of surgery and hit by cars. I mean, the worst shape you could possibly imagine. That medicine, there wasn't enough medicine to help these animals, and they were in so much pain. And so I learned Reiki to help animals heal. And so that was the whole gateway and the segue to much more into my life, to where I came today. But I don't know if you have any questions on what I've said so far.
Well, it was very interesting that you worked at the National Zoo for 10 years. I was living in Cleveland Park, Washington, D.C. for 3 years, from around 2000 to 2003. And every other day I'd walk through the National Zoo, and I just loved watching the animals. And my favorites were the tigers and the gorillas. What animals did you look after while you were there at the zoo?
At the zoo, I mean, because I worked as a nurse, I worked in the hospital. And so we were responsible for the care of every animal in that zoo, from the amphibians and the reptile house to the elephants and everything in between. So I literally have worked with every animal at that zoo at least once. My favorite, as you can see behind me, are elephants. And so any chance I got, I would go to the elephant house and do any sort of exams, x-rays, whatever they needed. I was the first to volunteer. But my other favorites were lions and tigers. I loved big cats. Worked with gorillas, orangutans. I've worked with pretty much every animal at that zoo.
Yeah, I remember it was just very comforting, just walking around, being in the presence of the animals. It was kind of like a favorite time for me to just be living so close to the zoo. And for those that know, it's free entry, so you could just spend hours and hours every day in that zoo looking at the animals. So at some point, well, I guess 11 years ago, your daughter Aramis was born, and then you began having experiences and communicating with extraterrestrials. So that's a big jump right there. So how did that all happen?
Yeah. So I'll go back a few steps. So during the destructive period, I met my now husband. So 23 years ago, I met somebody who I think saved me from myself. He was just something different than I had ever met. And I believe he was like a guardian angel that came into my life to put me back on path and help me believe in myself again, and brought the shadow side, tamed it down a little bit. And I was a little less heavy and dense, and the light came out. And then I had my first son with him 2 years later. And that was my first awakening. So my first son at 23 years old was my first awakening, and it opened up my heart. And I think I needed that first in order to do the work that I'm doing now. 7 years later, I had another son, and it was a whole other activation. And actually, that was the point in which I was doing animal communication, working at the zoo, and started healing practice working with adults. And so I was already doing healings, Reiki sessions, and kind of soul readings on adults. I did transpersonal hypnotherapy, which is a version of QHHT. So I was doing regression therapy, I was doing hypnotherapy, all sorts of different types of therapies with people. And my daughter came into my subconscious through a meditation about a year or so before she was even a thought, and said, I'll be coming into your life and I'm going to change your life. And I have a very big role to play here, and I need your help and I want your permission to, and I'm letting you know ahead of time I'm coming in, and we have a lot of work to do together. And so I would channel her, and I would write down messages from her pretty much every month. It took about a year for me to conceive her. And throughout that year, she taught me probably everything I know. All of the stuff that I've written in my books in the beginning came from her. She taught me about starseed children, the different types of starseed children, why they were coming into the planet. And she told me, just like Dolores Cannon worked with the first 3 waves, I would be working with the 4th wave of children and beyond. And so she was explaining, her soul was explaining all of that to me. So she was kind of like a spirit guide for me. Before she came in, she was this massive mentor. And throughout my pregnancy, I channeled her even more. And I started to communicate and open up more to my gifts of working with extraterrestrial beings that would come through in meditations and that would come through client sessions. So then I think the birth of her was the 3rd catalyst, the 3rd huge activation that occurred for me. So then when I started continuing with my sessions with adults, that's when I'll never forget the first time a galactic being came into my session. It was a yoga studio I was renting a room from, and I would set up my table and I would have clients back to back for the hours that I rented the room for. And this woman came in for a session, and I look in my 3rd eye because my eyes are closed, my hands are over this woman, and I'm seeing all these past lives, and she was in deep trauma. And I look over and I see this ant being, this really large ant being that honestly scared me half to death in the moment, because I'd never seen anything like it before, and I was instantly in fear. Because that was my reaction. Like, who's in this room? It was huge. It had it looked like an ant, big eyes, long arms, long fingers. And immediately it sensed my fear. And I got the telepathic message, I come in peace. That's all it said. And I'm saying it because it was androgynous. And I immediately melted in the energy because it was so peaceful and so calm. And he said, I'm here to help. It came to help me heal this woman. And so I did something in the session with her that I had never done before. And this being was teaching me what to do and how to help her specifically. And that was one of the first times that had ever occurred. I don't even remember, to be honest with you, if I shared at that time with that woman about that. Because this was in the beginning where I wasn't sure people were open to hearing those types of things. So if someone goes to an energy healer, you don't know if they're open to their galactic, healer coming through, or extraterrestrial. So I don't think I told her about that. But anyways, it was a gateway, it was a catalyst, because then I started more and more. The next thing you know, I'm working with an Arcturian that came through for another client, and they're showing me how to heal this particular woman, or what she needed to know, or that she herself was Arcturian and she needed to know where she came from and what her role in this world reality is, and what her soul journey was. And so my sessions have transitioned over the years to working in collaboration, not only with the higher selves of my clients, but their galactic being and their families come in and guide me and help me to help them.
Fascinating. So you would be using something similar to QHHT to put them under hypnosis, and they would then connect with their higher self or past life memories, or with extraterrestrials, and that would come through, and you, through your 3rd eye, could sometimes see the entities that were communicating through the client.
So it was a process. So initially when I did transpersonal hypnotherapy, very similar to QHHT, rarely did anybody go to a life outside of Earth, and I didn't see galactic entities at that point. I realized that I had a gift where I could see things really easily, and things were coming through that my clients were not able to see. They had a lot of blocks. So my higher self came through and said, you are not going to do this form of healing anymore, and you're leveling up essentially. And so I stopped doing hypnosis. And what I would do is I would relax people by having them lay down on the Reiki table, and I would do Reiki, just simple relaxation, energy healing. That's it. And while they were under kind of a certain level of hypnosis from Reiki, because a lot of us get into that, alpha theta mode just from being in an energetic healing session, then I would go to an alternative state of consciousness. And that's when the beings would come in, and I would communicate with them and do the healing and talk to them, all of it occurring at the same time while the client was essentially in a hypnotic state.
Now, you mentioned Dolores Cannon and the 3 waves of starseeds, and I'm aware of like the indigos and the crystal children. So, yeah, can you explain the 3 waves and this 4th wave? Because I haven't really heard of the 4th wave, but I'm assuming that it's just a new generation of kids with incredible abilities.
Yeah, basically that's what that is. I have discerned in my own research. Well, so I'm not a researcher. I should correct myself. The information that I write about in my books have come from client sessions, just like Dolores Cannon would write her books on her client sessions. Instead of me having recordings of that my clients have said, I take notes of the things that come through, and I have thousands and thousands of session notes, and I write my books based on a compilation of what I learn in the sessions. So that's how the information comes through for me. I don't sit and try and channel the Galactic Federation. I'm not a channeler. I do not do remote viewing professionally, although I can. So my information comes from the sessions. So when I was doing the sessions with my clients afterwards, I would explain to them what came through from their galactic families, and I would explain to them the information. And most of the time, it was very eye-opening, and it resonated very deeply for these people. I mean, they would be crying, there would be tears, they would spontaneously have their own activations and awakenings, and I started activating and awakening people, and it was very transformative. And so I just went off on a tangent. What was your original question? I apologize.
The four waves of starseeds.
Yes. So in my discernment through my sessions, what I have realized is that Dolores Cannon's work with the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd wave of volunteers really were mostly indigos. So they were a wave of volunteers that came in stages of time and eras when humanity was ready. So obviously the first stage came the earliest and struggled the most because humanity just wasn't awake. Enough of humanity was not awake and activated and ready for the information that these starseeds were bringing. So they really struggled. The 2nd wave had a little bit of an easier time because the 1st wave, it's not that they failed, they just kind of set the pace and the tone for the next group to come through and did a little bit of the groundwork. And then the 3rd wave, which I believe I am a 3rd wave volunteer, which is still an indigo, comes in, and we are even more. So each generation is a little bit more activated and awakened, and the frequency coming through the bodies is changing. So we are bringing a little bit more light in each generation. Now, when I discerned the 4th generation or the 4th wave is when I started, my daughter was born, and I started to attract a lot of clients that were, on the spectrum, let's say. I don't, big part of my platform is delabeling children. I don't like to use those labels, and I'm going to explain why. So I was attracting a lot of clients that had children that were nonverbal, had trouble walking, speaking, wouldn't look at people in the eyes, had learning disabilities, were very challenged in many facets, in many different ways and different spectrums. And I realized that I remembered that my daughter, the channeled messages that I had to go back out and get my notebooks, I remembered she told me about these different types of children that were going to come in, which would be the 4th wave, but it would be broken down into sections, not to create new labels, just to create and identify characteristics or the types of children coming through. So we're not taking one label and creating another one. What I'm explaining is hopefully will help people identify why we use the label of autism. So the wave after indigo are the crystal children, and the crystal children are the ones that came to open up the hearts of humanity because we have been so closed off due to war, conflict, dis-ease, and a lot of 3D interference that closed off our hearts on purpose, which is what I've coined the 3D interference, which is many different ways that the 3D has closed off our heart chakra through pain, suffering, trauma, and those sorts of things. So the crystal children they come from pure love. They don't have a lot of karma, if any at all. They come into this lifetime sometimes for their first life ever, and they are ascended beings. They are beings of just pure light. They bring in that God frequency, and they're here to open up the hearts of humanity. And they right now are roughly in the ages of high teens into the 30s right now. So my son is 20, I'm about to be 21. So he's kind of like right in the middle of that, semi in the middle of that. So anyone that has a crystal child generally is in that age group, and they came in and they're love bugs. They are non-confrontational. They don't like conflict. They don't like war. They're easygoing. They're pretty even keeled, and they're very loving, kind, and compassionate. And they sometimes are labeled super sensitive. So they generally aren't labeled with autism. Then the next group after that is the star group, and they have been challenged the most. So that group started coming in around maybe 2010, and are still coming in. So that age group could be anywhere from like 8 years old right now to mid 20s, and they are the left brain. I'm not here to have a spiritual experience, analytical, logical minded, intellectuals, the starseeds that are ascended beings, but come in here. They're the future leaders, the architects, the innovators, the way showers, the ones that are here to invent new technology, the ones that are not going to take no for an answer. They are labeled often with Asperger's because they are very routine based. Their brain works a certain way because they are channeling a very high frequency level of information in the collective, because they are going to be part of inventing not only medical devices, but free energy devices, things that we've had access to that have been hidden and patented for hundreds of years, but they're here to bring it back and escalate it, like even leveled up. So a lot of them are from Sirius. A lot of them are from Alpha Centauri. I mean, they're from everywhere. And a lot of them happen to be boys. So that's where the label Asperger's comes in. And the reason why they don't look people in the eyes, that these boys have told me, many of them are boys, is because they see so much of our reality. Same with crystals too. That they get overwhelmed by our auric field. I've had boys tell me they can see people's demons, so they will not look at an adult's eye in their eyes because they can see the entourage of entities. The entities taunt them when they look at them. It's almost like seeing an adult completely naked. They can see their lies, their intentions, their impurities, and the good stuff too, but it's quite overwhelming. And so a lot of these children on the spectrum that won't look at people in the eyes is because they're telling me that it's very overwhelming. It's too much information, and they don't want to know all of that information. So we've heard the saying, the eyes are the pathway to the soul. And that's what they're saying. They're showing us that. The nonverbal autistic children are here for many reasons. One, they refuse to speak our word spells. They know that our words are based on spells. Most of the children that come in from other galactic civilizations don't speak like we do. They either speak in tones, harmonies, frequencies, or telepathic. So there's non-interrupted melodies. So they can transmit a whole message through a melody or a specific tone. Our language was created specifically so that we could break up the harmonies, distort it, disrupt it, and actually cast spells with it. And so that's why we speak words. We're interrupting the harmonies and the tones. The children coming in know that. So they are refusing to use our words because they don't want to summon demons, and they know that it invokes negative energy. So that's a lot of the reasons why nonverbal children refuse to speak. Others have not spoken before, So they are in observation period. So they are literally listening to their family speak, and they're observing. And then next thing you know, 3-4 years old, they just start speaking in full sentences because they have literally been observing everyone around them speak for quite some time. And then when they feel ready, bam, they're just ready to speak. They've just been in observation the whole time. They're learning, they're watching the way we move our mouth, the way we speak, the way we present our words, the way we enunciate. The third reason is telepathy. So a lot of the children are here non-verbally to teach us, to remind us to communicate telepathically, which we all know how to do. We've just forgotten. So we have to open up that heart chakra to do that, so we can communicate energetically, soul to soul. So they're here to teach humanity how to communicate telepathically. So that's our star group. So the star group are the intellectuals, off the charts intelligent, but they strive in routine. So they can be challenging. They have to have things done a certain way, and that has to be this color, or they're sensitive to a lot of things, a lot of foods, a lot of sounds. Then we have the rainbow group that were born probably around 2012 up until the present. So they are a little bit of a mix of everything, but they're the rebels. They're the leaders of the world that are in the future. So they are ascended beings coming from all over the galaxies. And they are the leaders, the elders of their communities, of their civilizations, that are here to be the future politicians, but not in any way we can even imagine right now. They are here to spearhead and be the way showers that don't take no for an answer. Very rebellious, very high spirited, very free spirited, and they are the most challenging group of children right now to parent, because they will literally say no right to your face. They don't care what your explanation is. And they're supposed to do that because they're encouraging us. Because I'm sure you've done this. We've all done this. Someone asks us a question and we're like, I don't know. It's always been done that way. But why? Well, because my parents did it and their parents did it. But why? And they're making us think about it. Does it actually make sense? Is it necessary? Are we part of a negative loop? Is this a program? And they're encouraging us to think about it. So they're not actually trying to be bad children. They're not trying to be argumentative. They're trying to get us to think so that we can break out of our own limiting belief systems and our own programming. And they are very strong-willed, and they are the leaders of the future. And then there are more coming through. So I could keep talking for a long time. There's a group called Divine. So it's not really the fourth generation. I think it's just a blanket term, Michael, for continued generations that are coming in. And as we evolve as a collective and we bring in more light, our bodies can hold more light, and more higher frequency beings are capable of coming in and integrating with our bodies. Then more and more ascended beings are coming through, and those are coming in waves.
Now, I guess this takes us into your book, The Starseeds and the Great Awakening, and that is these kind of different groups or different kind of generations of starseeds coming in, being targeted, being identified early on, and being interfered with. I mean, you mentioned Asperger's, and I know there's been a use of a lot of drugs, and it seems that someone has been aware of these different waves coming in, and that they've used the kind of pharmaceutical industry to, I guess, target them. So, you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, imagine us all having a soul signature just like we have a fingerprint. So anytime anyone comes through the etherical realm, the etherical birth portal, everybody that's born onto this planet must go through the astral realm. We go through the etherical birth portal. So you are born, so you get tagged. So every single time anybody comes into this planet, the energy of the planet, not only Gaia herself, but the powers that were, the dark beings, the astral realm, can identify. They know exactly who comes in, and they know everything about you. They know where you come from, what your gifts are, what you're here to do. and they don't like it. And they know that massive groups of starseeds are coming in, and they know exactly what they are here to accomplish. And so they've been trying to stop it since the heighten of the I don't know what words we're allowed to say, but the schedules of the children getting those pokes, for one. And they tried to spin these spiritual gifts of these children and create labels for them so that they are not normal, so that they can trick parents into turning their children that are gifted and talented and have all of these abilities that are supposed to serve us in the future, which is right now, and suppress them with pharmaceuticals, injections, all so that they could trick people into believing something's wrong with their children, and then they can medicate them. And then when these children are medicated, they are suppressed, their frequency goes down, they become numb, and they are a shell of themselves. And so, they start labeling children with ADHD, for example. Well, these children are hyperactive because they're interdimensional. We all are and always have been interdimensional beings. When we come into this planet, because of the density, it kind of keeps us anchored into one-dimensional realm. But the higher the starseed, the more energy we bring through. We are popping in and out of dimensions. Our imagination is wild. We are in many places at the same time. So try telling a 5-6-year-old child to sit still in a classroom, and when they don't do that, because our bodies aren't designed to just sit still and listen under fluorescent lighting in a prison-style classroom and being lectured at, to memorize and be indoctrinated, then they convince society that there's something wrong with these children and we should medicate them so they sit still. Well, we're not supposed to sit still, but they have programmed us through many different ways to believe that that is the case, and that to be good little girls and boys, we operate like machines. So we're on an assembly line. We go through the indoctrination of schooling. We memorize. We do what we're told. We're good little boys and girls. We learn to listen to the person that's our elders, not to question. And all they're doing is suppressing our light. And the ones that stick out either get labeled and then medicated. And then there are government programs that take and abduct children for those gifts. That's what the gifted and talented programs are. That's why we have standardized testing. That's why we have all of that, so that the darker government programs can make lists of children that have unique abilities that they need for certain secret space programs, government programs, and they are abducted and taken into facilities and utilized. And that's been happening for thousands of years. That there's nothing new about that. But in the 80s, if you remember, Michael, we had something called SIDS, sudden infant death syndrome, was very common at that time. And the reason that occurred was because not only were children being given this higher schedule of injections, in the astral realm, it's much easier for us to be attacked. The movie Nightmare on Elm Street is actually a documentary. It's a real story of how we are attacked during dream state. And so when these children, imagine the dark ones, know that particular child was going to come in and invent something really spectacular later in their life, or do something really big, they would disconnect their life force energy while they were sleeping. And that's where Sid came from. They were literally, their life force was severed and their soul was popped out of the body. And they did that. That was a nefarious as part of a 3D interference, or an aspect of this reality, to stop starseeds from coming through. Now that doesn't occur anymore, but that's what that was about.
So with the gifted and talented children's programs, because I've come across that again and again with people who've been through the secret space programs, that they were identified and then they were recruited and, of course, subjected to all sorts of activities, dark activities, and used in that way. How many children have you come across that have gone through that kind of process?
Greater than 50% of the clients that I've worked with have been through that, if not in this life, in parallel lives that we work through the trauma of them still being connected. There are a lot of these movies, as many know, are real. So Stranger Things is the most popular one people are talking about right now, but there are so many others. those are real occurrences. And so children go to school, and there are programs where they are either taken into special rooms, taken on buses, memories are wiped, and they are utilized for whatever their specialty is. So anything is desirable. Whether you're super high off the charts intellectual, they can use that, especially for remote viewing and remote influencing programs. If you are a very strong athletic child that's also labeled with ADHD, so you're very hyperactive, they will use you for secret space programs for things where they need you to be a super soldier. So every aspect of the gifted and talented and or the deemed, abnormal children, it's all useful in some capacity. And that's why people should be wary about standardized testing, these programs like gifted and talented, because all they're doing is trying to place children in databases and lists, just like our blood types. They're all valued in certain ways.
Well, I've been interviewing a lot of women recently who believe that they're galactic envoys, and the pattern that I've found is that at a very early age, they're identified and subjected to all sorts of really incredible abuse. I mean, physical, sexual, just off the charts, kind of like Kathy O'Brien type abuse at a very early age, and that they later on identify or realize that they are like galactic envoys, that they actually are part of some kind of off-world program where these highly evolved souls come here and they try and help humanity, but then they're identified, apprehended, and subjected to this kind of abuse. And so then they become involved in a kind of like intelligence gathering programs. So, I mean, have you come across that?
Absolutely. I mean, the thing about this reality is it's so convoluted, which is why I love the title of one of Dolores's books, Convoluted Universe, because it is so convoluted. And just when you think you've figured it out, there are so many more layers to it. And so there are many galactic envoys. I call them collective. So there's a lot of collective groups that come here and volunteer to be born into SRA type families, to anchor in light and to be the bridge, be the anchor, be part of the change, to break the spells, to dislodge, disrupt, and transmute the darkness, and into government facilities and things like that. So people do volunteer to do that on purpose, as what's the word I'm trying to think of? As almost like a galactic informant or a spy.
Double agent.
Yeah, like a double agent. You're undercover. And then there are levels of that where things do go very wrong, and you get stuck, and then you get trapped. And then there are people that get trapped here, and they are here for many lifetimes. And instead of getting out of the abuse, they are tormented, fragmented, and then they are split into other inorganic timelines. There's so many timelines that we can't even count. People always talk about, the timeline split, but we don't talk about the inorganic timelines that are also in attempt of creation by I call them the dark players in my book, Starseeds and the Great Awakening, just as a blanket term to describe anything and everything you can possibly imagine that's against us, that are layered like a pyramid. And the dark players do a lot to traumatize humanity, to create inorganic timelines, so that because we are the creators and they are not, we can inadvertently, because we don't realize we're doing it, create these negative timelines for them and into fruition, like actually helping manifest them through our thoughts. So that's why we have so many of these subliminal messaging, and in the programming and the movies we watch, the music we listen to, the voice to skull technology that continuously plays negative affirmations that children hear more than adults, but even adults are starting to hear the negative affirmations. I'm not good enough, doom and gloom, I'm going to die. Or what's happening a lot with my adult clients right now that I'm seeing quite frequently, which is disconcerting, are people are having really dark visions of things that are anywhere from I don't want to give examples, 'cause I don't even want to put it out there, but just horrible things happening to themselves, to a family member, to the world, to their pet, that they're like, I'm embarrassed to even say this because I'm crying in my soul just thinking about it. And I'm like, this is not you. This is voice to skull technology is one, but there are hundreds of other versions of technology that they use through AI to implant or suggest negative affirmations so that we we create it because we obsess over it, we think about it, we dream about it, and we tell other people about it, and then we start talking about it, and next thing you know, we create it. And so that's where these timeline wars are coming in. So it's very complicated.
So the deep state, the cabal, whatever you want to call them, they have this kind of tracking technology to identify starseeds as they're born, and they begin their interference and kind of like try and hijack or co-opt them or try and disrupt them in whatever way they can. So it seems that walk-ins, is that a kind of like a process where the galactics are trying to circumvent that and like drop in people at a later point, rather than being born, that they kind of swap out souls at like 10 or 15 or 20 or whatever.
Yeah, this is a really cool conversation. And I'm going to tell you, I learned something about walk-ins that I don't know if anyone ever knew about, to my knowledge. So yes, walk-ins are galactic beings, ascended beings that volunteer to take over someone's life at some point. Let's say they chose a really challenging life and they were like, all right, I have to be an alcoholic because I got to, reciprocate or mirror this family lineage that I'm going to break the spell of this, or drugs, and they just get into a loop. They get into a negative loop and they cannot break out of it. So their soul says, SOS, I can't do it. I'm going to fail. I want out. I'm tagging out. And so a walk-in will come through and take over their memories, their life, and they will finish up the job. And a lot of times when that walk-in comes in, those people spontaneously stop doing drugs. They change their whole lifestyle and everything changes. Some are aware of it and they know that they're walk-ins and others do not. And some are now figuring it out in hindsight, looking back, saying like, hold on a second, 3 years ago, this and this happened. I think I was a walk-in. And I'm like, well, if you're thinking about it, then you probably are. You don't have to ask me. But something really cool that I never knew about, Michael, is something called reverse walk-ins. So reverse walk-ins is what it sounds like. There are such ascended souls right now incarnating, and this is for children. This is not for adults, that are so ascended. They do not, because humans are we are the most spectacular beings, of course, but we are one of the most primitive when it comes to our adolescence in comparison to many other galactic beings in the galaxies. Okay. So they don't like our toddler baby stage. It's actually the worst. My middle son is a star child, and he said that was the worst thing he's ever done in his life, and he would never do it again. So they struggle to be a child. They don't like being told what to do. They don't like being in a little body. They don't like not being able to be in control of walking and feeding and eating, and they don't want to play with toys. So they will make a choice, and they will say, okay, I agree to come into this life, but I'm skipping over that stage. I will not be a child. And whatever age it is that they decide, it's different for everybody. And so what I'm being told is that mostly angelic souls are stepping in as a placeholder. So they're an angel or an earth spirit that's very comfortable being in the earth body and has no karma and can really do this easily, will be in the baby's, integrate in the baby for however long. Could be 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, however long. That angelic being is in the body, having the experience and keeping the body functioning. And the whole time, though, the true being that's meant to be in that body at some point is always there. They're just kind of connected and watching like a movie. So they're experiencing it kind of by proxy, but not actually there. So they retain the memories and the knowing, and they get to know their family and their surroundings, and they're learning from the environment, but they're not actually experiencing it. They're kind of like viewing it from from a different perspective, but they're always there. And then they come in when they're ready. And that is called a reverse walk-in. And so they are coming in. And generally, what I've been told, it can be something as simple as a dental procedure. Tonsillectomies are very common for this to occur. So if a child has a tonsillectomy, or maybe a dental procedure where they need to be knocked out or given like gas or something like that, or a simple procedure, generally is when the switch occurs. But now they're getting so good at it because we're just so amazing and our frequencies are shifting so quickly that they could just do it overnight. They don't even need to be completely out of it anymore. They could just one night when they go to bed, the soul pops in, the other one leaves, and then the next day they are there. So we don't need to have a specific event occur as much anymore. But my daughter is one of those. And that's how I know about it, because she had her tonsils taken out at 4, and she not only changed in every possible way that I noticed, but everybody noticed. Friends, family, they were like, what? Why is her personality changed? Her face changed. The way she looked changed. Her body type changed. Everything about her changed. It was so obvious that the neighbors noticed. So sometimes it could be very obvious, and then other times it's not so obvious. But that's a reverse walk-in.
Okay. Well, so now we can dive a little bit into your second major book, and where you're kind of like talking about the dark players, their system, and how to dismantle the 3D grids. So, yeah, what is the 3D grid? What is the 3D interference, and how do we overcome that?
So in the first book, Starseeds and the Great Awakening, I go through as many what I call 3D interference as possible. So it could be anything anyone can imagine, from EMFs, voice to skull technology, black box technology, which are the portals through any sort of black box, a TV, monitor, iPad, phone, computer, to the birth trauma, etherical viruses. So I go in depth in the first book about, okay, these are a lot of the 3D interference that keeps us suppressed in a low looshing environment for the dark players to maintain control over us, to keep us in a system, into a program, right? So Courage to Change expands on that, and I go into the psychological effects, the 3D influence. How are they influencing us? And that's when I get more into music, mental illness, which again there's a lot of misinterpretation of, just like children who are labeled. Mental illness is very misunderstood. A lot of it has to do with diet and toxins in the environment, but it's really a bleed through. So these souls are very fragmented souls that are traumatized in other lifetimes, and they're having bleed throughs right now where they don't know which life they're in. So schizophrenics are oftentimes tapping into many lifetimes at the same time, and they don't know which version of themselves they are. All of those versions are actually them, but they just don't know where they are, what time frame they're in. So I go into mental illness. I go into a lot of, now, how do we take our power back? And so that's the work that I do. So the work I do every day when I work with clients, whether it's adults and children, is I do soul readings, and I go on I basically look at the soul's journey. Where do you originate from? Now, everybody originates from source. We fractal out, and we each are individual souls created, and we have our own unique experience. And the reason that we are all connected is because every experience I've ever had with whatever being I've ever chosen to be, same with you, it all gets funneled into this beautiful Akashic records, or whatever you want to call it. And that's how we learn and grow and expand. So we can have a lot of experiences from a lot of different perspectives, but you pull the knowledge into one. So this reality is based on individuality and dismantling and disconnection. They don't want us to know that we are connected like that, because we're more powerful. Knowledge is power. They don't want us to have knowledge. So Courage to Change is about how do we re-identify, how do we activate that inner knowing and unify as a collective and activate. So I help people look at their soul journey, where they came from, what planets are they connected to, who their star family is, and what advice they are given, and why did they choose. Everybody in this life right now has chosen to be here. There is no such thing anymore as the negative wheel of reincarnation. That's stopped. The only people that are on this planet right now that might and potentially could still be connected to the negative wheel, the soul trap, where they stole souls and reincarnated them for the last thousands and thousands of years through the dark ages for enslavement, disease, poverty, to keep us in that loop system, the negative loops, that stopped. So the only people alive right now that could still be in their last life connected to that system would be in their 90s right now, and most of them have passed away. And during the period of COVID, I was actually told by the higher selves of many souls that passed that yes, that was a bad thing that occurred, but it was an opportunity actually for a lot of the souls, the elders that were trapped in this reality, to be free, and they ascended from that point, and they are here now helping and holding space for us to transition, and they've returned back to their galactic self, and they are helping their families who are now here, their children, grandchildren, things like that. So everybody who is here right now has chosen to be here, and everyone is playing a role of some sort, whether it's an active role or a passive role. Active roles are someone like you. You have your podcast. You're also a public speaker. You're out there and you're spreading information, and you are writing books, and you are helping humanity in an active way. I am an active participant. I do the same. I write books. I go on interviews. I'm a public speaker. I write books, and I'm working to open up conscious education programs for the future of our children. That's what Aramis and I, that's our role together. That's why she came through. And there are many people all over the world that are active participants. And then there are also passive participants playing a role of holding space, anchoring in light, doing grid work, and just holding space. So they're the bridge souls. So they're just here to be the bridge between the old system, the collapse of the current system, and the creation of the new, so that the children that continue to come in now and in the future generations, we've created this beautiful bridge to get us there. So a lot of people are just holding space. So, everybody matters. I have such sad sessions with people sometimes that are all alone. They've been excommunicated from their families because of political reasons, because of their viewpoints, because they didn't get the COVID shot, because of all the rabbit holes they've been down, and now they see through the illusion, but their family is still very much stuck in the 3D. And they're saying, Sherri, I just want to die. Why am I here? I'm all alone. I literally feel like I have zero purpose. And I say, don't you dare take your life, because your life matters, because what you are doing right now is you agreed, because you are such a powerful soul, to come into this planet and anchor your light like a column of light in the midst of so much darkness, so much chaos, so much density of 3D. And your toroidal field is actively and constantly transmuting the density around you, and you are positively affecting your environment, whether you go to the grocery store, whether you're just walking in your dog in the neighborhood, or you never leave your house. Your toroidal field can reach miles and miles away. We don't even have to go outside. So people are playing a role even when they feel like they're all alone. So everybody here is doing something to help. And then there's a large percentage of us that are actually just healing. We have been in the wheel of samsara and the wheel of reincarnation for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And this is the life that we've chosen to heal finally and break free from that trauma, so that when we pass on from this lifetime, it's over and our soul is cocooned in light, and we continue to evolve.
So you want to tell us about TVs being portals, and this is part of the black box technology designed to enslave us, and how we can protect ourselves from that.
Yes. It's crazy. I learned about this through children. I had no idea. No one never told me about I never heard of it before. And I was in a session with a young child who told his mom that they needed to cover all the TVs in the house. Because there were beings coming through the TV taunting him and he would see them coming through the TV. So of course, this mom hears me doing interviews, talking to children, and said, okay, well, she's going to be able to help me, because his mom thinking he's a little bit crazy. Come to find out in this session, this boy is telling me that there are portals in all of the black box. That's why we call it black box technology. Anything black box, the phones, the monitors, the TVs, that's why they're so readily available and now so cheap. They're everywhere, because depending on what we use them for, they are portal systems. So if we're just doing our general work every day, like you and me, or we're just, doing positive things on it, as long as we protect, we do not consent and say, I do not consent to any negative portals opening through this device, and you visualize it with a golden grid around it, or however you want, your intention is the most powerful, you're protected and the portals will not work. But if you're sitting there watching pornography, or if you're watching really scary movies, a lot of scary movies, or paranormal activity movies, or movies that are really dark and scary, those are the ones that invoke fear in us, right? Because we're watching it, or sexuality, hypersexuality, if it's porn, that our energy activates the portal, and then we inadvertently invite the entities to come through. And that's how they work. And so it works through the television, like I said, the phone, anything. I had a session with a black and white cat once, an animal communication session, where this black cat wouldn't stop sitting in front of the TV in the living room for weeks. All of a sudden, out of nowhere, this cat never cared about the TV in its whole life. It was the most normal cat a cat could be. And then all of a sudden, the cat would not move from the front of the TV, would sleep there, would sit there all day, would just stare at the TV. So this lady contacted me for an animal communication session. She said, what's going on with my cat? Long story short, the cat showed me images of really scary things on the TV. So I went back to the lady. I said, are you watching scary movies? Like, what, this cat's showing me scary stuff. What are you doing? And she said, well, my husband and I just decided recently to start watching a marathon of old school 80s scary movies, like Nightmare on Elm Street or Jason, those types of movies, Halloween. And so every other night, or frequently, they were putting on a movie and they were watching it. Well, what they didn't realize is that the continuation of that, the frequency of them watching those scary movies, they activated a portal in their home. The cat identified the portal, saw beings coming through, and was sitting there to protect the family from the entities. So it was trying to block the entities from coming through. And he was telling me, I will not move until we close the portal. And he was trying to his best, but he wasn't able to do it. So in the session, I explained to them how TV portals work. They stopped watching scary movies. I told them exactly what to say and to do, which is basically assert your power, go to that TV, and you can do this for all devices in your whole house. You don't have to walk up to each and every room and each TV. Just say, I do not consent to any portals activating in any black box technology in my home that is not in alignment with my highest good or my family's highest good. And so it is in any timeline, in any dimension. And you just assert that dominance. And she did that. And the cat the next day never went back to the TV. She said he's interest, and we closed the portal, and it worked, and never cared about it again. But again, if you go to watching porn or negative things a lot, you're just going to activate it again. Same thing with mirror portals. Mirror portals are also real, and they work on shame the most. So most people, shame and arrogance are the way they work. So if you're one of those people who go, that's why they have so many at the gym. There's men or women working out, and they're checking themselves out, and they're looking at themselves in the mirror. There are so many entities at the gym. It's insane. Because you're lusting over yourself, and you think that you feel so high. And it's okay to think you look attractive. That's not the bad part. It's the arrogance and the ego that you are giving off, this loosh that activates the mirror portals, and then it attracts certain entities that like the loosh of feeling arrogant and powerful based on your appearance. And it also works the same for shame. So if you are one of those people who every time you look in the mirror, I hate myself, I'm so ugly, I'm so overweight, or you feel down about yourself, it attracts entities that love that, to loosh off of those feelings of I'm not good enough and I hate that, and they like that feeling. So mirror portals work exactly the same way. So we just need to so my point in all of the work that I do is never to scare anybody. It's really more to inform. Knowledge is power. So if you know about these things, I teach people, all you have to do is, one, know about it, and two, take your power back by your intention and saying, I don't consent to this. And you're mindful of your thoughts, your actions, and the things you do. And that's how we stop it. That's how we see through the illusion, and that's how we win.
Yeah, I've come across that quite a few times in my interviews with different people who have been through these horrific abduction experiences in particular, that they reach a certain point where they just say no, that you don't have my consent. And somehow they've been able to connect with that part of them, which gives them this kind of like strong belief, affirmation that, yes, I can say no, and you do not have permission. I withdraw consent. So we need to tap into that more to say no to these, whether it's a black box technology or whether it's a grey abduction or any kind of negative interference.
Right.
Okay, that's very important. Now, what do you know about quantum soldiers and quantum military?
So that came to me, actually, I don't even remember which book. It might have been Starseeds in the Great Awakening. Excuse me. Years ago, when I was working with a lot of children, well, I still work with a lot of children, but there was a period about a couple of years ago, I started doing a lot of sessions with young boys, like 6 to 8 years old. And I was seeing in their future, their job that they would do that they would be in would involve something along the lines of the military, but nothing like we have today. And they were telling me it's the quantum military. And they were showing me that they're going to be part of the military of the future. That has nothing to do with interpersonal or interpersonal conflict among our countries within this planet. It's because will be unified. It's more about coming together as one and protecting the planet. And then there are different sections of that. I think there was inner earth, there was land, there was air, there was interstellar, there were different layers to it. And that was coming up a lot in the sessions, that the children that I was seeing going into the military in the next 5 to 10 years will be part of the new quantum military of the future, which has many sections, not just protection, but technology, interstellar travel, emissary and galactic envoys of communication peaceful communication between and alliances with galactic races and things like that. That's what the military of the future looks like, that I've been shown so many times in so many sessions in various different ways. So I talked about that in one of the books. I think that's what you're talking about.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So I guess this takes us to the kind of human-animal bond, because I guess with this kind of quantum military, there's going to be more cooperation between the different species on Earth, whether it's people or soldiers being in tune with the planet or working with animals. So, yeah, you want to tell us about that?
Yes. I mean, the animals, the reason I wrote that book is because we truly have been misinformed. Again, it's a program. It's a negative program that has separated us from the bond between the human and the animal kingdom. And we have been misguided in so many facets to separate us, to make us feel like we are superior, like there's a hierarchy and animals are less than us. And in reality, many of them are guardians of not only this planet, but of us. And they are here as our biggest mentors, teachers, guides, companions. And so in that book, I go into the wildlife and how though there are guardian species that have nothing to do with humans, in the sense that they are here to help Gaia, to help us transmute. So a lot of the reasons why animals have gone extinct is not that they actually went extinct. It's because they went into a higher dimension. They decided to phase out of 3D. And so, and that's true for Sasquatch and unicorns and various fairies and things like that. They're still with us. They're just in the 5th dimension or higher. And so, the species that we have now that are the most important, that are the guardians of the land, are the horses and the the elephants. So the elephants are the record keepers, and their tusks actually hold Akashic records, which is why their tusks are so valuable and why they're killed for them, because the elite want to hoard all the tusks, because they believe that, like a book, at some point they're going to be able to read all the sacred knowledge that the funny thing, the joke on them is that you can't interpret it unless you're connected to these elephants. So truly the indigenous humans that care for these elephants are the only ones that are going to be able to read it when the time comes. And so the elephants, the way they migrate, they are the matriarchs, the divine feminine of the family, and they migrate around the areas of the planet, depending on if they're in Africa or they're Asian, and they transmute and do grid work, and they protect and they close portals and they open portals. Same with a lot of avian species, same with horses. So I talk a lot about the sacred guardian species, and then of the sea, we have the mammals, the sea mammals, the dolphins and the whales. They have not all come from Sirius B, despite popular opinion, nor have all cats come from Lyra. Everybody thinks that all cats are Lyran, and that is absolutely not true. They've come from all other universes. They are actually universal guardians, and there are many types of Lyran feline species. So I talk about a lot of that in the book, and I talk about how they're here to help us, how they are here to heal the planet, and how they are shielding and protecting and helping us re-terraform the planet. So dismantle, dislodge, disrupt the satellite technology, the 3D interference. And that's why they have weird migration patterns. That's why sometimes, remember, we were seeing them circle a lot back years ago. They were actively closing portals and helping Gaia reset and transmuting negative frequencies that were trying to be open in this planet, like dimensional tears. And then we have the domestic species. The domestic species are here to be our companions and have agreed to have an intimate connection with the humans. And they are our star family. They can be earth spirits, they can be Arcturians, they can be Pleiadians, depending on where we are connected and who our soul family is. We have volunteers that will come in to our life to be our companions, to help us, to protect us, to love us, and really to ground us into our bodies, because a lot of us are very galactic. And the biggest challenge I'm seeing with children is staying in their bodies. I always describe it as, imagine a mom walking around with a helium balloon. If you let that balloon go, it's just going to fly away. A lot of these children are so galactic, their frequency is so high, they cannot stay in their body. They just dissociate. And so animals are great grounders. They help bring children back into the body. They help bring us back into the body and ground us and help us to transmute, because we're all conduits. We're all conduits of energy, and we're all equally using our toroidal field to pull in negative energy, to transmute it, and to expand out our frequencies that are very varied based on where we come from and what we're here to do, which is what the dark players don't want. So the animals are in our life to help us. Cats are a little bit different. Cats, domesticated cats, are more astral. So they are our astral protectors. They close portals. They work with the astral lower entities, and they protect us from those entities, and they help us in the dream space. So when we dream at night, when we are the most vulnerable, the cats are with us, and they will be with us, and they protect us from psychic attack as much as they can. Of course, they can't always protect us from everything and abductions, but they do their best.
Well, I was very lucky to live on Hawaii's Big Island for 17 years, and we were able to just swim out in some of the bays there and swim with the spinner dolphins, and it was just an incredible period. I mean, it was such a beautiful community was established around that, and people were having amazing experiences, healings, teleportation, communications with the dolphins and the whales. And then COVID hit, and everything got shut down, and then they banned swimming with the dolphins, and we decided, okay, time to leave, and so we left Hawaii. But it was very sad, but that's exactly, I think, what the dark ones want, is they don't want us to have these kind of like meaningful interactions with the different species, especially with the cetaceans and the whales, and just incredible. But yeah, they ban it. They ban it wherever they can.
And I believe that's another layer of 3D interference, because what's happening, especially with the dolphins, a lot of dolphins are Lemurians. So they are Lemurian descendants, and obviously Hawaii is an aspect of Lemuria. So they are activating the Lemurian land, both in the sea and on land, and the descendants of Lemuria. So a lot of people who are connected to Hawaii, who have lived there at one point, or would love to live there, or will live there, or are Lemurians, at least in one lifetime. And so the dolphins are trying to help activate the Lemurian within us. And so people who have a special bond with dolphins generally are connected to Lemuria in some way. And again, I believe that's why they are trying to sever the connection between us. And the whales are also, they're universal guardians. Whales are beyond Lemuria, beyond Atlantis. They are universal guardians. I mean, they are even portals themselves. They travel throughout the universe, and they are portals that can take you to other dimensions, other planets. They're absolutely magnificent, and they don't want us to connect with them. So a lot of them are in inner Earth, actually. And so the sad part about the book that I explain in this book, I think it's this book, allergies were created by the dark players. So whether it's stuff they've added to our food, chemtrails, vaccines, or a plethora of ways, they have created allergies to animals on purpose so that we cannot have animals. So many people love and would love to have a cat or a dog, but they're so allergic that they can't. That is a nefarious reason. That's another 3D interference. They've done that on purpose so that in our genetics, we have been modified through epigenetics over time to be allergic to animals so that we can't have that connection.
Now, people are kind of really fascinated by this 3-eye atlas and what it represents and the effect it's having on us. So is there any kind of information you've gotten on 3-eye atlas, what it means, who's behind it?
Okay, so I just did my first public statement about it, because I have kept quiet this whole time. I have not said anything. And the reason for that is, again, I'm not a Galactic Alliance informant. I don't sit in my room and try to get information. So if it doesn't come through sessions, I don't learn about it. I don't talk about it unless somebody asks. So for a long time, nobody seemed to ask. It wasn't coming up in my sessions. And to be honest with you, I really didn't care that much. To be quite blunt, I wasn't interested. And then I started having sessions, and I noticed that the information that I was getting wasn't the same as everyone else. So I was kind of like, okay, embarrassed. Like, am I wrong? Or maybe I'll just keep my mouth shut because I'm not getting the same thing as everybody else. So I didn't say anything, but I'll just give you a compilation of what I've received in about half a dozen sessions. It does not come from this universe. It's passing through, and it really has nothing to do with us. The reason Lyrans keep coming up is not that it's a Lyran ship, but they have the capacity to communicate with high dimensional beings, Lyran being one of them. So they are in communication with the Lyrans. I don't see any beings on it. It's an organic, sentient ship in and of itself. So it's alive. And I feel energy on the ship, but I don't see any bodies. I don't see any physical beings that I can see, point out that I can say, it looks like this. I just see energy. I just see beings. And it's giving off solar flares, again, on its own. And what's happening is, it is two things. It is positively affecting us as it goes. It traverses through our, our time and space near our planet in our galaxy, and it's interacting with the sun, and it's causing these solar flares that are positively affecting and activating millions of people, and it's positively affecting the planet herself. So a lot of great things are happening as a result of it. It's spontaneously activating, awakening people, helping with their DNA and the crystallization process. it's also having a very negative effect on those that are not in alignment with the high frequency and are not, like the dark players, let's say, or the 3D people, are actually getting very agitated, and it's causing distortion and discontent within them because they are not receiving those frequencies well. It's like it hurts them. It's like, a vampire goes outside during the daylight. It's like, I don't like it. So it's having an adverse effect on those that are not ready or willing to receive the upgrades. But to be honest with you, I have not ever received that it's a Lyran ship. I've been told repeatedly, it really is not here for us. It's passing through, but it's gained an interest in us as it's gone through and it's learning more about us. So there's a curiosity element of it, and it's happy to help us, but I don't think it's not coming here, and I don't see it coming here or landing here. Now, I know that is not what a lot of other people are saying, but those are some of the things that I have received.
Great. So, Sherri, do you want to share with people your website and any upcoming events or activities that you're doing?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for asking. Everything is under my name. So my website is sherridivband.com. So if someone wants to have a session with me, whether it's adults or children, you can do it through that website. Any classes I'm offering are also on that website, and you can learn more about me, and my links are on there. I have a YouTube channel, Instagram, and Facebook, all under my name as well. All of my books are on Amazon, which I think there are links on my main website for that. If you're interested in my conscious education and my nonprofit, AramisCreativeLearning.com is the website for that, and that has all of our classes for children, resources for parents, and the information on the conscious education that I am creating here in Florida to begin with, and then it will expand internationally. I have lots of conferences coming up this year and retreats. I have one coming up in March. I'll be in Sedona, Arizona, hosting a retreat in March, first week of March. And I will be speaking at the Star Knowledge Conference. I'll be speaking in Mount Shasta in July. I have a couple other retreats. Of course, I'm blanking right now. So you can find all the information on my website, though.
Well, thank you, Sherri, for coming and sharing a little bit about your background, your research, your book, because I think it's a very important work. And I mean, we all want our children to grow up. And in my case, I've got 3 grandchildren now who are kind of like part of that 4th wave. So I definitely want them to prosper. And of course, the animals. I mean, I've always love animals, and connecting with the animals is so important. So thanks for reminding us about that.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on your channel, and thank you to your audience for your attention, and I hope that this information has resonated and found all of you well.
You have been listening to Exopolitics Today with Dr. Michael Salla. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Join or start a conversation in the comments. Take the time to explore the vast library of best-selling books, webinars, and podcasts by Dr. Salla. Visit exopoliticstoday.com.